I have repaired thousands of hearts with a needle and thread, yet I never saw the one being carved out of my own chest until the blade was already cold against the bone. It is a strange, clinical realization to understand that the daughter you raised to save lives has become the very person who is systematically ending yours. The hospital air has a specific weight to it, a mixture of rubbing alcohol, floor wax, and the heavy, stagnant scent of lingering fear that I used to breathe like oxygen. I spent 40 years in these corridors. I was a world-renowned cardiothoracic surgeon, the man they called the Chief, who had held the literal beating hearts of thousands in my calloused hands. I built my legacy on precision, on the cold, hard logic of the operating theater, where a millimeter is the difference between life and a flat line. But as I sit here on this hard plastic chair in the lobby of St. Jude's Memorial, I realize I never accounted for the most dangerous incision of all, the one delivered by my own blood. My daughter, Sarah, stands 40 feet away in her pristine white coat. She is looking at her clipboard, her eyes scanning data with a focus I once admired. She doesn't look at me as the father who paid for every expensive tuition, the man who stayed up until 3 in the morning coaching her through her surgical residency, or the man who held her hand when she lost her first patient. To her, I am just a biological obstacle wrapped in a designer frame, a wandering ghost in the halls I used to rule. "Doctor," a voice calls out. It's a young nurse, someone I don't recognize. She's looking at me with that tilted head pity that has become the soundtrack of my life. "You shouldn't be sitting here in the draft." "The air is fine, nurse," I say. My voice is steady, though I can feel the intentional rasp I've been practicing. "I like to watch the doors." She smiles, but there is no warmth in it. "Of course, but we don't want you getting confused." "I designed this hospital," I whisper, though I know she isn't listening. Sarah finally looks up. She spots me and her face tightens. It's not the look of a concerned daughter. It's the look of a CEO who just spotted a typo in an annual report. She walks toward me, her stride brisk, the heels of her expensive shoes clicking against the polished linoleum with a sound like a ticking clock. "So," she asks as she reaches me. She doesn't lean down to hug me. She stands over me, using her height as a scalpel.
"I told Nurse Miller to keep you in the lounge." "I was tired of the lounge, Sarah," I reply, looking her in the eye. "It's too quiet." "The tests are for your own good," she says, her voice rising just enough for the passing staff to hear. "Your heart is failing, Dad. The echocardiogram from last month was very clear. You're experiencing significant ejection fraction decline, not to mention the cognitive slips." "I didn't forget my birthday, Sarah," I say. "See, this is the aggression Dr. Holloway warned us about," she says, turning to a colleague who has just joined her. "It's the vascular dementia. He's becoming increasingly difficult to manage." I look at the colleague, a man named Dr. Eris, who used to be my junior resident. He looks at me with a flicker of recognition, but it is quickly extinguished by Sarah's authority. "It's a tough road, Sarah," Eris says, patting her on the shoulder. "But you're doing the right thing." "It's a sacrifice," Sarah sighs, her voice dripping with artificial grace. "But family comes first." My daughter's lie tastes like ash in my mouth. I am as lucid as the day I performed my first bypass. I am not failing. I am not fading. For the last 6 months, I've been living in that cramped 2-room assisted living suite that smells of lavender and slow death, and I've spent every second of it observing the monster I created. Sarah told me my heart was failing. She showed me the charts, the blurry scans, and the blood work that looked like a death sentence. She told me that to protect my vast estate from being seized by the state for medical costs, I needed to sign the family trust over to her immediately. I trusted her because she had my eyes and my surname. I trusted her because a father's love is the only variable that ignores the mathematics of betrayal. The day after the ink dried on those documents, my house, the home I shared with her mother for 40 years, was listed for sale. I was moved, for my own safety, within 48 hours. Every memory, every photograph, and every piece of my history was boxed up and shoved into a storage unit she won't give me the key to. If anyone is listening to this, I wish someone had warned me that the person you would give your life for is often the same person who will decide your life is no longer worth living.
If you have ever felt the cold sting of being discarded by the people you built a foundation for, or if you've seen your legacy stolen by the ones you loved most, take a moment to subscribe, because I am about to show you that while a surgeon knows how to heal, a master knows exactly where the most painful cut must be made. Sarah checks her watch. I have a board meeting, Dad. Nurse Miller will take you back to the annex. Please try to be cooperative. I ask, slurring the words just a fraction. They keep you calm, she says, already turning away. I watch her walk away. She is the head of surgery here now, a position she bought with the influence of my name and the capital of my stolen life. She walks past the portraits of the former chiefs on the wall, and I know she is just waiting for the day my face is up there, with a gold plaque and a date of death. I wait until she disappears around the corner of the elevators. I don't go back to the annex. My legs are stronger than I let on. I spent months doing isometric exercises in my bed while the nurses thought I was napping, keeping my muscles from atrophying. I stand up, and for a moment, the ghost of the chief returns to my posture. I head toward the cafeteria. I know the rhythm of this place better than I know my own pulse. At 1:15 p.m., the surgical staff changes over, and the tables are cluttered with the things they forget in their rush. I see her tablet. Sarah is meticulous, but she is also arrogant. She left it on a corner table in the staff lounge area of the cafeteria while she was paged for what she thought was an emergency. I walk over, picking up a stray tray to look like just another patient. I sit at the table next to the device. A notification pops up on the lock screen. It's a real estate alert from a commercial broker. I shouldn't be able to read it, but I know her password. It was her mother's birthday, the same password she's used since she was 16. I tap it in. My fingers are steady. The tremor she tells everyone about is a lie I've been feeding her by drinking too much caffeine before her visits. I open the email. My breath hitches. It isn't just my house she's selling. She is liquidating my private research facility, the one I kept separate from the hospital. That facility holds the patents for the synthetic valves her department uses, the very technology that made her surgical career possible.
She is selling the sterling legacy to a medical conglomerate for pennies on the dollar, just to secure herself a permanent seat on their global board. She isn't just taking my money, she is erasing my history. She is a scavenger picking at the bones of a man she thinks is already dead. I look up. It's a young orderly. I quickly slide the tablet back to where it was and look at him with a vacant, wandering stare. I thought it was a book, I say, my voice trembling. Let's get you back to your room, the orderly says, his hand firm on my shoulder. I'm lost, I whisper, playing the part. As he leads me away, I feel a surge of adrenaline, a phantom rhythm in my supposedly failing heart. Sarah thinks I am broke. She thinks the trust was all I had left. She is so blinded by her own greed that she forgot the most basic rule of my life. Always have a redundancy. She forgot about the founder's account, the one I opened in Switzerland 40 years ago, tied to the original research patents I never moved into the family trust. It was an account I kept for a rainy day, and right now, it is pouring. She thinks I am a patient. She thinks I am a victim of time and biology. She has no idea that I am actually the only man in this city who can write a check large enough to stop her heart. They walk me back to the annex, back to the room with the lavender-scented air and the beige walls. Nurse Miller is waiting for me, her hands on her hips. What? She asks, shaking her head. Sarah won't be happy. I just wanted to see the sun, I say, sitting on the edge of my narrow bed. Take your pills, she says, handing me the little paper cup. I take the cup. I put the red pills in my mouth, and as I've done every day for weeks, I tuck them into the pocket of my cheek. I take a sip of water, swallow hard, and show her my empty tongue. Good man, she says, turning off the main light. The door clicks shut. The lock turns from the outside. I sit in the darkness, the silence of the room pressing against my ears. I reach into my cheek and spit the red pills into my hand. I walk to the bathroom and flush them down the toilet, watching them swirl away. I look at myself in the mirror. I see the wrinkles, the age spots, the thinning white hair. But I also see the man who once commanded a room of 50 surgeons. I didn't need a scalpel to fix this. I didn't need a surgical team. Sarah had taught me that the most effective way to kill something was to cut off the blood supply.
She had tried to do it to me, but she didn't realize that I held the keys to the main artery. I reach under the loose floorboard beneath the vanity, a spot I discovered weeks ago. I pull out the burner phone I had an old friend from the medical board smuggle in for me. I power it on, the glow of the screen reflecting in my eyes. I dial a number I haven't used in a decade. Switzerland, a voice answers on the second ring. This is Elias Sterling, I say, and my voice is as cold as a morgue slab. I need to move the entirety of the founder's assets. And where would you like to move it, doctor? I look at the hospital tower visible through my small barred window. I see the lights of the executive floor, where Sarah is likely celebrating her upcoming board seat. I want to buy the debt of St. Jude's Memorial, I say, every cent of it. I hang up the phone and tuck it back into its hiding place. I walk back to my bed and lie down, staring at the ceiling. My heart is beating with a strength that would shock the doctors who looked at my forged scans. I am no longer a patient. I am no longer a victim. I am the owner of the ground she walks on, and she is about to find out that when you try to bury a man like me, you'd better make sure he's actually dead. I close my eyes, listening to the distant rhythmic beep of a heart monitor from down the hall. And for the first time in months, I sleep with the peace of a man who knows exactly how the surgery is going to end. I am Elias Sterling, and I am finally ready to make my final rounds. I spent my life saving people who didn't want to die, but now I'm going to enjoy watching a career bleed out on the floor. I've repaired thousands of hearts in my time, but I never realized that the most difficult part of the anatomy to mend would be the one I helped create. The boardroom of St. Jude's Memorial is a cavern of glass and mahogany, a temple of corporate medicine overlooking the sprawling city I helped build from the ground up. I spent decades in this room, arguing for better equipment, more research funding, and higher standards for the residents. Back then, my voice was the law. Today, the atmosphere is electric, charged with the kind of artificial excitement that precedes a coronation. It is the annual board meeting, where the new chief of surgery is to be officially confirmed. Sarah sits at the head of the long, polished table. She has the seat I occupied for 20 years.
She looks the part. Her white coat is crisp, her hair pulled back in a severe professional bun, her chin tilted up at an angle that radiates nothing but arrogant success. She thinks this is her moment of ultimate triumph. She's wearing a pearl necklace, the one I bought for her mother on our 30th anniversary, waters of corporate law while I navigated the chambers of the human heart. He is the most ruthless corporate attorney in the tri-state area, and today he is the only person in this building who knows I'm not rotting away in a lavender-scented prison in the annex. He looks at Sarah with a neutral, terrifying stillness. The board chairman, a man named Henderson, whom I once saved from a triple bypass, clears his throat and taps a silver pen against his tablet. The hospital has been struggling with the recent acquisition costs and the mounting debt from the research facility expansion, Henderson says, his voice weary and heavy with the weight of the bottom line. It's been a difficult fiscal year. However, as we move to confirm Dr. Sarah Thorne as our permanent chief of surgery, I have some remarkable news to share. An anonymous investor has stepped in at the 11th hour. They've purchased the entirety of the hospital's outstanding debt and acquired 42% of the voting shares. They are, quite literally, our new landlord. Sarah beams. She leans forward, her hands clasped on the table, the pearls gleaming in the morning sun. She looks like a woman who has finally stepped out of a shadow. I look forward to working with them, Sarah says, her voice dripping with an artificial grace that makes my skin crawl. My vision for St. Jude's is one of efficiency and progress. We have a lot of older assets that need modernizing. She's referring to me. She's referring to my research facility, my patents, and the very philosophy of care that put this hospital on the map. She is preparing to sell my soul to the highest bidder, and she thinks the bidder is on her side. The heavy double doors at the back of the room swing open. I don't shuffle. I don't use the walker she forced on me to make me look frail in front of the social workers.
I walk with a measured, rhythmic pace of a man entering a theater of war, my back straight, my head held high. The sound of my leather soles against the marble floor is the only noise in the room. The silence that falls over the boardroom is absolute. It is the silence of a vacuum. Sarah's glass of water slips from her hand.
It hits the mahogany table and shatters, shards of crystal spraying across the polished wood. The water spreads like a dark, jagged stain, mirroring the sudden, deathly paleness of her face. "Shh," she gasps. Her voice loses every bit of its professional edge. It cracks, thinning out into the high-pitched, terrified sound of a little girl who just realized the dark is occupied. "You're supposed to be. You're confused, Dad. You shouldn't be out of the annex. Henderson, I am so sorry. His vascular dementia is reaching a critical stage. He's had these lucid episodes before, but they're usually followed by intense aggression. Marcus, I told you to keep him comfortable." I don't stop until I reach the foot of the table, directly opposite her. I look at the board members. I see Henderson's jaw drop. I see Dr. Eris, who looks like he's just seen a ghost. "I'm not confused, Sarah," I say. My voice echoes with the same deep, resonant authority that once made surgical residents tremble in their boots. It is the voice of the chief. "And Marcus isn't here to take me back to your cage," I continue, my eyes locked on hers. "He's here to file the formal change of ownership. You've spent months telling the world that my heart was failing and my mind was gone, but you forgot that I'm a surgeon." I reach into my breast pocket and pull out a single sheet of paper, the final signed buyout agreement from the Swiss Holdings. I slide it across the mahogany table. It glides over the spilled water and stops right in front of her shaking hands. "I am the anonymous investor," I say, and I let the weight of that sentence settle over the room like a shroud. "I didn't just buy the debt to save this hospital from your mismanagement, Sarah. I bought the building. I bought the equipment. I bought the very ground you're standing on." The board members begin to murmur, a low, frantic buzzing. They recognize the legend. They see the man who put this hospital on the map, and they see the strength in my hands, hands that are as steady as a rock. "Sarah," screams, finally finding her voice.
She stands up, her chair screeching violently against the floorboards. She looks around the room, her eyes wild, searching for an ally. "Henderson, look at him! He's mentally incompetent! I have the signed power of attorney! I am the legal guardian of his estate! This sale isn't legal! He cannot enter into contracts! I'll have this voided by the end of the day! Guards!" Marcus steps forward. He doesn't raise his voice, but the room goes cold when he speaks. He slides a thick, leather-bound folder onto the table next to my buyout agreement. "Actually, Sarah, we've been very busy while you were busy picking out office furniture," Marcus says. "The power of attorney you had him sign was based on a fraudulent medical diagnosis, one that you personally authored and backdated. That is a felony in this state. It's also grounds for immediate disbarment from the medical profession." Sarah stares at the folder as if it's a coiled viper. "We have the toxicology reports," Marcus continues, his voice clinical, "from an independent lab. They found high levels of unprescribed benzodiazepines in your father's system, sedatives that were being administered under your direct orders at the annex. You weren't treating his heart, Sarah. You were chemically suppressing his mind so you could liquidate his patents. We have the logs from the burner phone he used to document the times you and Nurse Miller forced those pills down his throat." The color drains from Sarah's face until she looks like one of the cadavers in the basement of the pathology wing. She looks around the room, but the community of doctors she tried so hard to impress is looking at her with a mixture of pure disgust and professional horror. Her legacy, her career, her stolen wealth, it is all evaporating in the cold, harsh light of the truth. I look at her, and for a moment I don't see the head of surgery. I don't even see a rival. I see a profound spiritual void. I realize that in my lifelong quest to build a legacy of healing, I forgot to build a daughter who understood the value of a soul. I feel a wave of sadness wash over me, but it is a detached surgical sadness. I have to cut out the rot to save the body. It is the only way I know how to survive. I don't even use her name with affection. You are terminated, effective immediately, for professional misconduct, fraud, and elder abuse. You are no longer the chief of surgery. You are no longer an employee of St. Jude's Memorial.
"Dad, please," she whispers, her voice finally breaking. She reaches for the pearls at her neck, her fingers trembling. "I was doing it for the hospital. I was doing it for us. The debt was too much." "You were trying to bury me while I was still warm, Sarah," I say. "You wanted the prone, but you didn't want the work."
I turn to the board. The confirmation of the chief of surgery is canceled. Henderson, I'll expect a full audit of the surgical department on my desk by Monday morning. As for Dr. Thorne, please remove your white coat and leave the building. Security is waiting in the hallway to escort you to your vehicle. Sarah tries to speak, to beg, to find one person in that room who will look her in the eye, but she finds only the cold, reflected light of the glass walls. She is a serpent who has finally bitten her own tail, and the venom is working its way through her system. She slowly reaches for the buttons of her white coat. Her hands are shaking so much she can barely undo them. She slides the coat off her shoulders, the coat I was so proud of when she first earned it, and lets it fall onto her chair. She looks smaller now, frail, unimportant. As the security guards lead her out, her sobbing echoing down the long marble hallway, the boardroom remains in a state of stunned, heavy silence. I don't look after her. I walk to the floor-to-ceiling windows and look out at the sea. The morning fog is lifting. I can see the roof of my house in the distance, the one she tried to sell. It is being reclaimed as we speak. The patents are safe. The Sterling Research Facility will remain independent. My dignity has been restored, not through a scalpel or a suture, but through the same cold, calculated precision I used for 40 years in the operating room. I feel a strange sense of peace, a quiet, spiritual strength that I haven't felt since before the failing heart diagnosis. Marcus walks up beside me and places a hand on my shoulder. He asks, "I'm fine, Marcus," I say. I take a deep breath of the sterile, recycled hospital air. For the first time in 6 months, it doesn't smell like lavender or floor wax. It doesn't smell like a waiting room for the end. It smells like home. It smells like the truth.